Guys, you are muted both. We can't hear you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this policy seminar, which is co-hosted by the UAE government, along with the CGIAR Science Program on Policy Innovations, and also the CGIAR Accelerator on Digital Transformations. I'm Rajlakshmi Nirmal, Communications Lead with the Policy Innovation Science Program, and I'll be your moderator today. So let's begin with a clear truth, right? So our global food system is under siege. Every day brings a new climate shock, a new economic volatility, or a new supply chain disruption. So the challenges we face now move at the speed of light, yet our traditional policy analysis remains rooted in static and lagging data. Forecasting 5 years ahead with 6 months old data is very dangerous, right? It jeopardizes national stability and compromises human lives. We gather here today because we must close this gap. The goal of this seminar is to show how we can bridge and how we can transform the policy making from reactive guesswork to predictive certainty using AI. We are very delighted to be joining hands with the UAE government in this and leveraging their global digital leadership in our mission to scale AI-driven policymaking. Today, we'll be showcasing some of our powerful AI tools developed by the CGIAR, and to officially kick us off and set the context, allow me to introduce Christopher Hamill, who provides crucial vision and partnership for this initiative. We are truly honored to have you here, sir, today. Over to you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'll wait for a moment to see if I'm in frame and in camera. Okay. So first of all, let me welcome you all to Abu Dhabi, both here in the room and also online. I'd also like to give thanks to our colleagues at AI71 who are hosting us here at Abu Dhabi in their temporary facilities here, but when you come back in about 6 months' time, we'll be in a brand new facility as one of Abu Dhabi's leading AI companies. They really are at the forefront of a lot of the activity that's happening here. And as you mentioned, there's a lot happening here, and we're really excited for that reason to be able to work hand in hand with the CGIAR broadly in starting to build out and support CGIAR's own use of applied AI for public goods. Maybe just a bit of context to set the stage. So our office has been at the International Affairs Office of the Presidential Court, has been engaging with CGIAR for a little less than 2 years, ever since COP28, when a new partnership was formed between UAE and the Gates Foundation. An essential pillar of that partnership was for UAE to join the System Council of the CGIAR, and then to find different avenues through that mechanism and more broadly to be able to support the CGIAR in different ways that align with UAE's development interests, capacities. So there have been a series of activities that have been launched related to topics that are of interest to UAE, for example, developing a new consortium to combat the red palm weevil, which is the primary pest that affects date palm farmers here. But I'd say that there's sort of a twin set of priorities that maybe even supersedes those specific narrow thematics. One has to do with policy, and the other has to do with artificial intelligence application. So the topic of today's discussion is perfect. It's sort of the perfect discussion at the right moment in time, in the right place here in Abu Dhabi. When it comes to policy, one of our first investments was actually in IFPRI to focus on the Future Food Systems Project, which is essentially providing technical support to 10 plus countries to be able to use foresight and other modeling tools to be able to update NDCs for food systems, to really match the integration of the food policy modeling work that you are so famous for, and integrate that into climate commitments. And this is following directly on the heels of COP28 and our commitments there when it comes to food and climate. So that's on the policy stream. And I know we're starting to see some results going into COP30. We're going to hear more and more about that project and its results. On the other hand, was a commitment to essentially create a new center of gravity for the CGIAR in Abu Dhabi, focused specifically on artificial intelligence, and providing some resources to be able to convert all of the research that's been conducted for so long from the CG side, and be able to convert that into AI products that could be used essentially as public goods to inform a discourse, better decision-making, scientific endeavors, what have you. So later this year, in December, we will be officially launching the CGIAR-AI Hub. We currently find ourselves in the temporary space. This is it. It is as much a coordinating space as it is a product shop. Currently working on the first product of the CGIAR-AI Hub, which is the Agri-LLM, which will be launched in December, the world's first fine-tuned large language model specifically for agriculture. We've already seen several waves of results, which are preliminarily quite interesting and substantial, I'd say, in terms of advances in the space. And that gives us hope that the next products that we'll be able to bring to the table will be equally powerful and transformative. We know that we'll be looking at gene bank accessions and maybe recommendation tools, other modeling tools that can help users better access that information. We know we're going to be looking at livestock in some capacity. We know we're going to be looking at hydrology. These themes are already underway, product designs and scoping starting. It'll be interesting to sit now and listen to this convening and see what kind of opportunities there might be to link up the policy modeling side space with the power of AI. We already know, I mean, foresight itself is super powerful. We found it very compelling when we joined and wanted to be able to support it. So the question is, what can we do when we kind of join the streams? Right. So thank you for being here and looking forward to contributing. I hope you don't mind on the margins. I might ask some questions, etc. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, for a short welcome note, I am pleased to introduce Clemens Bresenger, the Director of the CGIAR Science Program on Policy Innovations. He will provide context on CGIAR's strategic vision for policy innovation and how the AI tools that will be presented today fit into that mandate. Clemens is a firm believer that keeping solutions simple and working together are the keys to solving any challenge. Over to you, Clemens.
Wonderful. Thank you, Raji, for this nice introduction. Thank you, Chris, also, and the UAE government for hosting us, for all of those online. This is about the retreat of the CGIAR Policy Innovations Science Program. We are so happy to be in this place, Abu Dhabi, where things are happening, new technology, pushing the frontiers, etc., and together with the Digital Accelerator as well. Now, as you mentioned, Chris, there is a lot of things going on in the AI space, foresight, other tools. Let me just add one dimension to whatever we already, I think, have discussed, and you have discussed it. In the case of policy, it's about tools, it's about foresight, it's about evaluation. But in the end of the day, the impact comes from the fact that decision makers are actually following the advice that come out of this model. So in addition to AI being useful for modeling, evaluations, etc., it can be a very powerful tool to help decision makers, policymakers in the global south to actually believe in the results, in the sense that they can now start to interact with the chatbot, questioning the assumptions, getting a better understanding of why these results are as they are, or even interactively ask the chatbot, and then the model runs in the background and sort of brings new results. So it can be I think, a huge facilitator of bridging what we call the science policy gap, because that is a huge issue in the kind of work we do. Yes, we have the good science, but is it being implemented? And I think this AI tool in the policy space and some of the things you will be hearing will be very instrumental to bridge that gap. Okay, with that, thank you again, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the webinar and wish us all a productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Clemens, for framing the urgent need for innovation. The next 30 minutes are dedicated to the core of our seminar, seeing the groundbreaking AI prototypes in action. Our first tool is RIAPA-AI, the tool which is designed to provide comprehensive data-driven analysis of policy impacts on food systems, poverty, and jobs. So to walk us through this tool, please welcome Asghar Mukasso, who's joining us online. He's a research fellow at IFPRI and a key architect of this solution. Asghar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. So just to confirm, do you see my screen? Elliot, do you see my screen?
Just a moment.
Okay. So I will be presenting to you our pioneering project that we developed in close cooperation with the Gates Foundation. It is really a prototype, and I hope you all like it. So before jumping into the specifics of RIAPA-AI content, let me tell you about RIAPA model itself. So RIAPA is an abbreviation for Rural Investment and Policy Analysis Model. Now, we at IFPRI, we have the largest repository of single country economy-wide models. About 40 countries have their own national RIAPA economy-wide models. And the key is that RIAPA is designed to capture agri-food systems, that is primary agriculture and agro-processing. Now, of course, because agri-food systems are the backbones of the developing economies, mostly we are focused on developing world. And the model itself, because it's economy-wide, it shows all the linkages from agri-food system to the rest of the economy. And the model is quite popular. It is one of the most cited economy-wide models in the world. And we are very excited and optimistic with the new opportunities that generative AI gives us. And we hope that the next iteration, so RIAPA-AI, will make some sort of revolution and democratize our tool so that we can reach many, many more people and policymakers worldwide. So let me give you the example of how the model is typically used. So with the start of Russian invasion of Ukraine, there were significant shocks in the world commodity market. So we see here prices of commodities, of key commodities such as fertilizers, energy, food have jumped. And we had a huge demand to nowcast to estimate the impact of these shocks on many developing economies worldwide. Now, how we typically do this kind of estimation? So first, we need to translate the input shocks, so the information on the shock scenarios that we have into valid RIAPA inputs. Then we need to run the model itself. get the simulation results, and then we need to estimate, interpret the simulation results. So here we had rapid estimation of these input shocks on respective poverty rates in more than 20 countries around the world. And of course, then we can decompose impact of food prices, fertilizers, fuel, and fuel prices. So let me give you the quick demonstration of how exactly this was done under the standard approach. So first, we need to work with a lot of Excel sheets where a modeler has to go through the underlying data such as elasticities, production data, population data. Then one has to specify the baseline data, so the baseline scenario data, going through all sorts of valid modeling inputs. And then, and this is the key, simulation scenario itself. So modeler has to identify the respective modeling inputs that characterize the scenario itself. So here we see the price changes, has to make sure that the model understands this as a valid input. After which, let me just skip that. After specifying all the modeling inputs, one has to open special software called GAMS, which is an abbreviation for General Algebraic Modeling System, installed locally on computer, run the simulation, and produce the results, which are then exported back to the Excel sheet. After that, one has to go through all these outcome dimensions and write the report. So there are several barriers to this standard orthodox approach. Well, first, one has to clearly formulate shock scenarios, and to do that, one has to know all the structure of the respective Excel files. Second, there needs to be a software itself installed on economist's computer, and that software is costly, about $4,000 a year per user. And then, of course, number three, one has to interpret all the modeling results. Now, generative AI era gives us new opportunities. So we realize that actually all these three steps can be done automatically by what can be called as an AI agent. So first, the first step, natural language model helps to formulate the scenario simulation request, edit respective input files. Second, seamlessly send it to the GAMS engine cloud, which will conduct the model solves based on the token system. So everything is done in the cloud, no need to install the local GAMS on the computer, and the cost of simulation is, at least for relatively simple country model, is about 1 cent per one simulation. And then at the stage 3, in our concept, modeling results are exported to generative AI, and then which then in turn can make comparison of the simulation versus baseline and automatically write the report. And this is because it takes a little bit more than 8 minutes. I recorded our app, how it performs live. And as we can see here, so user just types a question of interest. So in this case, I said, so that's the prototype for Kenya, our economy-wide RIAPA model for Kenya. And for Kenya, we know that coffee is significant sector of economy. And the shock that I typed here is 50% increase in the world price of coffee. And as we see, that is the only input I give to this agent. So let's see how it performs. All three steps will then be done seamlessly. Of course, it takes some time. So first step, it changes the respective modeling input, so Excel sheets. It properly identifies the respective cells. It sends it zips modeling input, sends them to cloud, retrieves the results back, and analyzes the simulation request. So as we can see, there is an executive summary with all the explanations, and eventually, yep. So then automatically we're also working now on producing the respective PDF report, about 9 pages with all the respective plots, sections, subsections, depending on the user input. Now, that key component, 1, 2, 3, what we call standard RIAPA-AI model, is designed actually to someone who can clearly formulate simulation requests at the step 1. We are also currently working, and we are hopeful to explore new collaboration opportunities to develop what we call RIAPA-AI Plus component, which will have a scenario facilitator, which will allow us to expand the user audience. So the idea is to have some sort of country-specific mini foundational LLM trained based on country-specific data, and then which will be based on literature or all sorts of equations, econometrics, side models, or whatnot, relatively simpler compared to RIAPA itself. And then if user specifies the general request, for instance, related to fertilizers use, nitrogen fertilizer, organic fertilizers, or whatever, it will go through respective satellite database, look for any sort of knowledge, translate or transform that to respective valid RIAPA inputs. So for instance, RIAPA can only take total factor productivity parameters. It will not understand if user specifies, oh, what happens to the economy if as a result of government policy, we will increase the use of nitrogen fertilizers by 20%. The RIAPA model itself has to take only total factor productivity as an input parameter. So scenario facilitator will allow to translate whatever ideally any user request into valid RIAPA input. And that's what we're trying now to develop as a next step. But the core itself is already democratizing and optimistic. We remain optimistic for more or less trained users itself, because it saves time with all the relevant gains of AI. We don't hear you.
Yes, thank you, Esther. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Esther. So that was a very compelling look at how we can link macro policy decisions directly to social outcomes. So next, we shift our focus to a critical on-the-ground resource challenge, water scarcity. For farmers and food systems, optimizing every drop is non-negotiable. Our second tool is IDMF-AI, the Irrigation Demand Management and Forecasting Tool. I'm pleased to introduce Mohsin Hafiz, Program Director for Water-Fed Ecosystems at IVMI, who brings deep expertise to this critical area. Over to you, Mohsin.
Thanks, Raji. Good afternoon. Yeah. Let me know. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the hydrology. Basically, we learned about the policy, but hydrology, which is one of the critical one, and saying it how much water is being used and how we could optimize the water for the to deal with the water scarcity challenge and ultimately for improving the food productivity. Just on the next one, please. Okay, yeah. So I will be talking about typically about the irrigation demand forecasting and saying and management of for climate resilient agriculture. We know that when the climate is posing a lot of challenge and food system and everything, how we could do it, how we could optimize the limited water availability and then drop for every drop of water, every drop for optimizing the productivity. Next, please. Okay, so we are looking at around in the irrigated agriculture global perspective, around that 72% of the global fresh water withdrawal is being used for agriculture. And then that's where when we are looking at around the food production, 20% of the irrigated agriculture land is producing around 40% of agriculture production. There is a much more scope of that one to optimize that one, the productivity and improve that one, the food production. On the other hand side, we have it also, many studies have predicted that one we need to have the double the global food demand by 2050 to meet that one, the growing population and all the other sectors as a part of that. So I'm just giving here one example is from the Indus Basin, but then the work which is presented here that has been used in Murray-Darling Basin in Australia and many other basins in the Western world. The concept we have applied in the Indus Basin, which is using it around 90% of fresh water withdrawal, and then the efficiency is very low as a part of that one. Also, the Indus Basin in part of Pakistan is facing it only 30 days of water storage capacity, which make it impossible to how to improve that on the productivity when you have limited water available. And then that's leading towards the more water is being pumped by the groundwater, and then that's being using it as a part of that one. So we are working it on that one, how we could have synthesizing the irrigation demand forecasting, ultimately improving the productivity. Next, please. So looking around what it matters, typically the farmer has a myth that one, okay, if I apply more water, I will have a more productivity and I will have the crop yield will be improved. That's a myth. And on the top of that one, especially in South Asian system, the British introduced a Varabandi system. What that means, you will be getting a water after 7 days. You need a water or not. You will be getting a water and then the farmers tend to choose apply that amount of water, and then that has a detrimental impact on the farmers, on the crop productivity and everything, and we are wasting a lot of water. So we are working on this one on two aspects. First is how we could change the farmer behavior. The myth that excessive water should not be applied. Second is about how we could bring the AI application to optimize that for the water productivity. Agriculture is using 85 to 90% of water. Then in a rain-fed area where there is around 40 to 60% water is used being pumped from the groundwater, that's very relevant to the UAE. Part of the groundwater is being pumped for growing the production. And then the inefficiency in the part of Pakistan is having around 40%. And that's directly impacting on the smallholder farmers and as well as especially the women and all sort of things, the irrigation plan and how to optimize all those sort of things. Next, please. Looking at around that one, we are not starting something new, but this is the digital twin work which has been done in the Limpopo River Basin, and that's a part of the AI 71, the presidential code. We want one of the important things in the digital twin is we need to understand the hydrology model, foundational hydrological model, and within the foundation hydrological model, we need to understand how much is the crop water use and how much is the crop water demand as a part of that one. That's where the tool which you have got that will be coupled there within the digital twin, and that will be part of the digital twin and coming to the AI 71 as a part of that one. Next, please. So looking at all that, first thing is we are understanding that one the evapotranspiration. So we are utilizing the satellite images to understand that one the crop land use and land cover. In any crop, what are the typical crops is grown, and here we are using in 345, one of the study in Pakistan. Also, we are doing a modeling to understand that one how much is the crop water is consumption is that one on the different parts of land. In order to validate and having better understanding what we are doing it, we have installed the 6 covariance flex tower which are measuring that one the water footprint as well as carbon sequestration and methane emission, especially which is from the irrigated rice. And that's giving us whatever we are getting from satellite images and then validating on the ground with that one and giving us a confidence the model what we are using it, that model is good enough. So we could apply it to the much larger river basin system and apply it. Next, please. So the important thing is farmers are not interested in the science. They are saying it, we need a simplified thing, even in Australia or in the California Valley. So we are introducing a soil moisture sensor, which are really like a very small one. It has a 3 probes, which is basically 0 to 60 centimeter, 20 centimeter, 40 centimeter, and 60 centimeter. 60 centimeter is the amount of one which is equivalent to the crop root zone, and that's like money for the farmers in the bank. So what we are stressing is that blue means you have excessive water in the system. Green means basically you have a field capacity and the water is enough what's needed. And that means that the crop will be impacted. Our interest is that one farmer could look it on the field and he should go for the green one, not for anyone. Next, please. So we have applied in the context of Indus Basin around more than 500 sensors in the upper Himalaya, in the upper part of the mountain region. In the arid environment, in our even going to the extreme environment where they will be heavily dependent on the groundwater. And just to understand how that's being used, and we also applied in part of Africa and many other river basins, just to get the confidence that is that changing the farmer behavior or not? Is that changing the farmer's myth or that? Next, please. What we are getting it from the 500 sensors, the first thing is when we applied for a cotton crop, we are able to have it basically 20% of water saving by applying the sensor. And then the second is for wheat crop, it's 25%, and for maize crop, it's 18%. These are the results which we are getting from the farmers' field cumulative as a part of that one. And that's changing the farmers, their mindset. Oh, we should not be applying excessive water, we should be limited water. And their productivity is also increased 20%. Water saving is there, and then the crop production is improved, especially on that one, the farmers who are pumping the groundwater, which is also a very classical case in the Middle East. The pumping has a cost, and then that cost is reduced, and then the improved production. Important thing is making sure the farmers are working. As a scientist, we are not saying, but behavioral changing of the farmers, and then the soil moisture sensors advisory service. So that's where we are training to the farmers and everything, and those soil moisture sensors around $30 or $40, very cheap in the field, which you could apply it and everything. Next, please. All that's important. So what we have done in the initial part is we have data collection from satellite. We have processed the data. We have utilized the machine learning. We utilize the model testing and then getting actual evapotranspiration. And central part is the farmers where we want to change their behavior. Now the next thing is AI application is coming. We are getting the 7 days forecast, which is typically available. What will be the temperature look like? What will be the rainfall forecast? And then we identify the crop, feed to the pre-trained model, 25%, 75%, then irrigation demand forecasting from 7 days. And that's giving to the dashboard to the farmer access. The farmer could look at that one, and that's where the farmers could change their thing. And then that's ultimately helping to the irrigation department for changing the water allocation adjustment as a part of that one. Next, please. So we got the 10 years, 2015 to 2025, we got some of the satellite product, normalized vegetation health, net radiation, how much energy comes in, how much is the land surface temperature, satellite fund and land cover. And of course, we have done the develop automatic decision tree system for various crops, for the maize crop, for the sugar cane, for the rice, and all sort of things are common. Next, please. And then we applied the 3 different, this is the one, the satellite one, which is calculated the satellite model, which is telling us how much is the actual evapotranspiration for the rice, which is saying 3.2 millimeter for the day of 21st of September. And then we applied 3 different models, which is a part of artificial intelligence, XGBoost, CNN, and random forest, and then compared with the flux tower, just to understand the last one, flux tower, and seeing which model is performing very well. And for forecasting, we are saying CNN model is working very well for rice, maize, and guava, and then these are the results showing it at the farmer field, what's happening on the part of that one. For various crops, we have the land cover information that's guiding to the farmers how much the water they need to use. Then we applied it because this was the hindcasting. Next, please. Next is imparting. This one is we are getting from a flux tower, which is on a cumulative one, and that's what is on forecast, which we are getting it. And we are seeing the results are very well as a part of that one. Overall, what we are getting it from the weekly cumulative from flux tower, it's matching very well as a part of that one, whatever forecasting is that one. And that's forecasting we are using it. We have tested for 1 year in the field, at the farmer's field, and now we are working with the irrigation department upscale to the canal command level, so that they could apply it and then the forecasting and make the water allocation adjustment to deal with the thing. The important thing is the rainfall forecasting. If a farmer, I'm getting it 8 millimeter, I need a water. I have already confidence on soil moisture sensors are there. I could look around how is my soil behaving, and then I'm utilizing on that kind of service and then working it on that. Next, please. And this is a basically I want you, if you could click it. Yes. That's the last slide. So this is a part of the dashboard which is guiding us everything. So you don't need to go through on the complex sciences and everything. It's processing everything and it's selecting the area. You select a particular date, and then that date it will tell you what's happening, what parameter you're interested, and it's collecting that's showing that how the crop is in surface temperature on the different days, how the different crops areas under stress and everything. And again, there are different files which are built in automatic processing, and it's picking up and then showing it the different vegetation health indicators and all sort of things are there. And it's telling us that what they need to do, what are the different farming practices on the different days and everything. You could zoom in, you don't need to go for a complex science and everything. And then if you could basically hold on further on that one. It's giving us the information about the soil moisture, how much is surface water flow comes in, how much is the rainwater in terms of time series, as well as also on that one, the farmer could see on that one what's the soil moisture sensor is telling us, also at the same time. And this is the tool which we have to apply it, and we will be applying it in under policy innovation in various countries and upscaling it as a part of that one. Next, please. Next. So it's a part of that one. This is ultimately helping on that one how to optimize the crop productivity as well as with less water. There is normal and emergency condition when we're saying water is less and less, and it's contributing to the various total demand for water sources so that we could use the water for other purposes. So this one, thank you.
Thank you, Mohsin, for demonstrating the power of IDMF-AI. So now to show us how this technology is implemented through real-world scenarios, we now turn to the digital twin case studies. Please welcome Claudia Ringler, the highly accomplished Director of the Natural Resources and Resilience Unit at IFPRI. Claudia is going to walk us through this presentation now. Over to you, Claudia.
Thanks a lot. So to clarify, this is a joint presentation between the Policy Innovation Science Program and the Digital Accelerator. And so I'm presenting on behalf of Charu Ku, who is the Deputy Director of the Digital Accelerator. Just 3 more examples, because the accelerators in CGIAR, they function to support and provide advice to all of the science programs. And so there's now going forward a lot of joint investment where the science program invests in some AI tools and the accelerator co-invests in the same AI tools. And so, yeah, I'll just go through 3 very quick examples. So the first one works actually directly with a collaborator or a partner who already has an incredible reach. So 62 million farmers across 40 countries. So they're being reached by Farm Radio International. So but their problem is that they work with populations that have very different languages, and a lot of them are called low resource languages. So that when you try to use AI tools or even the people operating the radios or sitting in the radio station, they don't know those languages. So farmers call in, there might be a lot of background noise, they might be speaking languages that the operators don't understand. And so actually, Elliot here has worked with Farm Radio International, you can go to the next slide, to try to use specific AI tools to bring these low resource languages to life so that the farm radio operators basically can actually answer the questions. So there's a little demonstration, and we don't have to go through the whole thing. Let's see if it operates. It should work automatically. So currently they're working on 2 languages, Bambara and Luganda. So in Mali and in Uganda. And so that tool again has dramatic scope for scaling going forward. So this is my understanding is basically the message that was received, and it's being transcribed in this, using this low resource language. Without these AI tools, you couldn't really understand what's going on, because there's so many different languages in those countries in Africa. The next tool, we go back to what we've already heard, digital twins. So that is en vogue right now. So a lot of the science programs are developing their own digital twins. So they started with water, but there's also multifunctional landscape digital twins. We heard about city digital twins for flood forecasting. So there are a lot of digital twins, which is basically a copy of the real world. You put it in a model, and then before you, for example, start, let's say, flood risk assessment, before you start some huge infrastructure like a huge dike or any other infrastructure to address water-related risks, you better model them in the digital twin. And the digital twin is basically trying to do a little bit more than traditional hydrological models. And you can also use real-time data, because climate data is coming as a real-time resource. And again, you can, it will automatically run, a bit similar to what we've seen in the RIAPA-AI tool, but also the AI, the irrigation AI tool. So there's again a request. When they have a question, we would like to understand, for this particular water stretch, what is the e-flow? I think it's about some e-flow requirements. And, do we have enough environmental flows in fish free? And we expect that many more river basin organizations will start to be interested in those digital tools. So this has now been adopted already, the Limpopo River Basin in Southern Africa. The work that our interim director of the accelerator is doing. So now we talk about livestock. Because of climate change, we know there's a lot of heat stress, not just for humans, but also for animals. And it's very difficult to know if an animal is heat stressed. And it's also difficult to read for animal heat stress. And so again, you can use AI tools such as these kind of collars, and there's other ways to do it. You can, I think I've seen things you put on the ears of the animals, and they will tell you if the animal experiences heat stress. And then you know what is the breathing stock of the animal. Is that particular animal more heat tolerant? So we have little young cow, like a wheel or whatever we call it. Okay, and a calf, very good. And we can detect, is that calf coughing? Is that calf experiencing heat stress? Also, obviously, other diseases we can also detect that. And so that is, again, more common in high-income countries. But here, I think of importance for illness in Africa. So again, that will be a tool that will be very widely, used, especially in intensive field operations. And that's it from my side. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Mohsin, and thank you, Askar, and the team for those fascinating demonstrations. I think now we would have about 15 minutes of time for Q&A. So the audience online and those in the room, your time for feedback or to ask questions. So maybe we can start from the room, and then maybe we can go to the online audience. So.
I had a question, maybe just to
Oh,
kick it
yes,
off.
we can start
Very
with you.
nice. First of all, I find these really fascinating. I think, Khaled, I hope you found this fascinating as well. I mean, you get a sense of the breadth of the application and the depth of the CGIAR's research, not only across different sectors, but internationally, in different contexts. So super interesting. Thank you. First question would be for the RIAPA team. Oscar,
yeah.
Oscar, forgive me if I mispronounced your name. Could you talk a little bit about the validation?
I don't think I heard the end of the question. Could you, so after validation, you muted the mic. Well, I think I got the main idea. So
Scientist like yourself then ran the model herself or himself.
uh,
And how do you test that? I'm just curious technically, how do you even evaluate that?
okay, so we
How
have
does it work and how do you know if it worked well?
Yeah, Oscar, how you evaluate it?
okay, so we have
We can't hear now.
Or you can-
He heard that.
yeah, I just heard the ending, but I think I get the main
And
question.
we don't hear him because we don't turn on. Got a bit of an issue.
Can you
Stand
hear
by.
me?
You don't have an agent yet to manage the.
It's not his fault.
If you can even hear me, I don't know.
Can you hear me? Can you
Can
hear
you
me?
speak now, Oscar? No, we
Yes.
still don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Is it muted?
I'm not.
It's easier to just yield to folks online.
Okay, so at least folks online can hear me.
Yeah. We can hear you now.
Try again.
We
Okay.
can hear you, yeah.
Okay, so how do we validate? We do have two-stage architecture. First is what we call RIAPA, and the second what we call RIAPA-AI plus. Now, let me first answer how do we validate RIAPA-AI. So there, what we noticed is the key is the proper specification of RIAPA inputs. As long as RIAPA inputs of the respective cells in various Excel sheets are changed correctly, the GAM solve and then explanator agent, they don't really hallucinate. So as long as, because the essence is just to change the respective input cells in depending on the user query. So if part one is done correctly, well then what is left is just for a bunch of economic modelers to see how good was the explanation of the comes output, and there the room for hallucination is literally zero. The deviations come then on the style, language, and we're trying to customize it depending on the user self-reported modeling experience. And I mean, in the economic world, at least in our area, you can argue whether you begin explanation of the shock transmission channels. It can be from top to bottom, bottom to top, and so on. But in general, because the numbers are produced by the GAMs, there is no room for hallucination. So that's, or for any sort of discrepancies or problems. So in summary, we validate the results of RIAPA internally, just by CGE modelers inside IFPRI. Now the problems actually come at the plus component, because we've had the case when a user typed something about reduced use of nitrogen fertilizers by 80%. Now, because, like I was saying, our model can only take total factor productivity as input, so the input agent interpreted it as 80% reduction on total factor productivity, because that's the closest match it could find. And then, of course, it zipped and sent this invalid input to the cloud, but then GAMS cloud. But then GAMS solved it correctly. And of course, then interpretation engine was also done based correctly, assuming that the GAMS did the right job. So basically, garbage in, garbage out. So we don't know yet how exactly to do the proper evaluation of the generative AI on step one. Yeah, but we were hoping that we could establish some sort of partnership with all the benchmarks and so on for that particular stage one, because there we need help of proper AI engineers.
Thank you.
So any other questions for Asghar or for Mohsin, Claudia? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, thanks so much. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. So I was just wondering in terms of the decision makers for them to actually almost like accept, right? They will be the one, some of their colleagues may do actually the analysis. And I mean, we know some of the limitations of, let's say, ChatGPT, right? So I was just wondering whether there's any plan for actually the teams to look at people acceptability of the results, or they actually will value the evidence lower than if it was done by a human being. I don't know who is the suggestion for, it's an open question. I think
yeah.
One project, so
Yeah.
Clemens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I can talk a little bit to that. So I think what will help, and that I think is also an addition to this tool going forward, and an important one, is if the decision maker can start to question the result. Because we know that, whatever we don't understand, we will not implement. It's more likely if we are comfortable with the result, we understand all the assumptions that are necessary in the model, that we accept. So I think an important addition to this tool would be a more sort of interactive way for decision makers to actually ask, okay, so you tell me, GDP is going down by 1% and I'm losing 50,000 jobs. Why? And then comes the response, hopefully we made this and this assumption. And then you can say, but I don't think this is the right assumption. Make this assumption instead and rerun the model. And so I think sort of being more interactive feedback loops can help a lot in the uptake. And maybe that is an important addition to this tool to consider, Asghar, going forward.
And just to mention, so there was some research, I thought some of your staff were involved, where they developed AI-generated policy briefs and
Yes.
human-generated policy briefs. And as soon as the audience was aware that some were AI-generated, so they said they value them less than human-generated policy briefs. So there's a question, because you kind of have to provide the information to the end user, right? That AI was used in the preparation of a policy brief, right? So it's an ethical question. And so there is currently still the public perception that if AI was used in the preparation of these policy briefs, that the quality is lower. And then also, there were also obviously sometimes differences in the quality of the content, but then the AI tools are rapidly evolving. So there is, the difference between the quality of the content is changing. The question is if the difference in the quality of the audience, perceived quality of the product by the audience will also change. So I think there is a study that was done, so we can move this forward. Is that the answer?
We're actually already doing some stuff as well with policy advocates. So Kristen and Hami, South Africa, we're planning to do these kind of workshops where we try to understand how a policy advocate would then unpack the assumptions behind a politician and their agenda before then trying to provide the correct response.
Can I add? So
yeah, essentially these things can have a large scale impact, right? Policy is probably the largest scaling mechanism that we have. If the policy environment is right, you will immediately reach millions of people. Also, huge potential for a large scale impact with all these tools, if they are adopted
And trusted.
and trusted. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to mention one of the example is which we have applied it in Australia. In that one, in the upper part of the dams area, the catchment area, typically that you need to know how much rainfall comes in, and then how much is storage in that one, so that you could operate that one, the dam's operation, how much water need to be released and everything. And that's a policy decision where they're considering that water is a high commodity cost and everything. And then some of the model, which is based on the forecasting of AI tools and everything, that's guiding us. If there is 30 millimeter of rainfall, looking at the soil, is it dry, is it not dry? And then they could make the informed decision how much water needs to be released from the dam to mitigate the floods and everything. That sort of information was not available 10 years ago, but now that's being used. And important thing is how much trust you are getting it, how much the validation of that fund is important. And then that guiding to the policy making to make it informed decision.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for your insightful questions and engagement. Your feedback is exactly what we needed to ensure these prototypes move from pilot to widespread adoption. Now, to discuss the pathway forward for scaling these AI-driven policy tools, I would like to introduce Ram Kiran Dulipala, the driving force and the interim director of the CGIAR Accelerator on Digital Transformation. Over to you, Ram. You can come here so that everyone can see you. Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah.
5 minutes, okay.
Yeah.
Firstly, thanks a lot to Clemens and all the policy innovations participants here. And big thanks to Chris and the AI-71 and the government of UAE for taking the time and hosting us here. Look, first and foremost, I think, you made an important statement when you were referring to your colleague Chris. I wrote it down. He said, breadth and depth of knowledge, data, people, right? Of course, a lot of what we do comes out in the form of either data or knowledge products. But beyond that, you also have a lot of people with their own lived experience with that depth of tacit knowledge, right? Yeah. And somehow it's a well-established fact that the world really needs all this to really sustainably transform our agri-food systems. But there are only so many people we have, so much data we have, so much knowledge we have, right? And that's the real opportunity of digital and AI in general, right? How do you use AI, digital, so on and so forth, to really take all this knowledge, to take all this data, to sort of take all the knowledge that is sitting in our heads as implicit or tacit knowledge, and bring that out using AI and then make it more scalable, right? I think that's the real opportunity. And it is in that context, I think this policy group presents a very interesting opportunity. I think, as I mentioned briefly, there is a lot of AI footprint across the program that we are witnessing. But I think the real opportunity is how do you consolidate all this, leveraging on the fantastic partnership we are just cultivating with UAE, in the form of this AI hub. So how do you use this AI hub as a partnership framework or as an entry point to sort of really take some of this public goods that we are creating, bring it up through AI and make it much more scalable? I think that's the real opportunity, and I'm very excited about the possibility of doing that. Just before I make a closing remark, let me also just mention, because I know I'm wearing the hat of the accelerator, right? It gives me great pleasure to see that in the P25 portfolio, practically every science program has a very clear-cut agenda on digital innovation and AI, right? That's great to see. But then having said that, if we just are not very strategic and if we don't have a coherent strategy, what we'll end up is creating a lot of little fragmented efforts which really don't serve our purpose. So we'd really hope that you look at Accelerator as your genuine partner, like we would be like your AI partner, your digital partner, wherein we'd also like to bring in the expertise and the depth and the valuable resources that we are getting from UAE, right? So we'd like you to consider the Accelerator as some sort of your partner who brings up, leverages and brings all that partnership and helps you in accelerating your own digital and AI transformation journey, so to say, right? So to that extent, look at us as your partner. Don't try to replicate what we're doing. Let's not duplicate in this age of depleting resources. I think it's in our interest that we all work together and think in terms of creating a few solid good products like the way we are trying to create with UAE. Let's not create too many products, create a few big impactful products and then work in a way so that we adapt that product to suit your own contextual use cases, so to say, right? So I'd like to close with that. Once again, thanks a lot for the time and thank you, Chris and the UAE team for hosting us. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you, Ram. So that brings us to the close of our seminar today. My deepest thanks to our co-organizers, the UAE government, and of course, our excellent presenters for the day, and those of you who joined us online. We look forward to continuing this conversation on AI and policy, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's perfectly managed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job.
Well, I actually, I sort of responses. So one maybe micro, one macro in terms of the partnership with the UAE. One, where you find yourselves, right? Sitting in the boardroom of an AI company. And that was sort of our vision, if you will, in working with the CG and trying to create this AI hub was, let's not, let's put CG scientists in the middle of an AI company, right? Like, let's have you here embedded. Let's have you convene here. Let's have you talking to the AI architects and engineers. And in that way, maybe break down some of the various forms of intermediation that might separate you from being able to harness the technology. So it's an experiment, but the idea is for it to be very practical in its application. So I'm hoping over the next few years, as this experiment matures, we'll be able to see the fruits of that new way of maybe partnering. That's number one. And then number two, from the UAE government perspective, there's a famous announcement that as of January 1st, 2026, the UAE national AI system will have a seat at cabinet in UAE, as well as rippling down to the different administrative boards and governing bodies. So UAE is very much walking the talk here when it comes to AI influencing, shaping, being consulted when it comes specifically to your domain, policy. And so having a partner that kind of understands and values that maybe could be a bit of a laboratory for that actually could also help you as you navigate not only creating the tool, but is it trustworthy? Is it not? Is it used? Is it not? Does it really matter at the end of the day? We are very much a living laboratory here for exactly that kind of thing. So looking forward to it. Thanks for coming again.